Ministry of Wrestling podcast. Do you know what I think about the Ministry of Wrestling podcast? It's my favorite podcast, and I'm yet to listen to it. Right now, I will listen to it. That's the deal, right? So right now, if you're looking at my bald head and you're not listening to the Ministry of Wrestling podcast, I'm ashamed of you. I'm disappointed in you. You've made me sad, and the only way you can sort this out is by listening to
the Ministry of Wrestling podcast.
Do it now and subscribe. And do other things with the thing.
All right, thank you. Shut that.
Hey yo, guys, guess what? It's free fifth for them boys today. Yes, three of us are in the house. It's me, the one AJ, Anthony Jordan.
Me, then the wrestling fan that doesn't watch wrestling.
And as always, I'm Big Tone in the zone. Remember the order, man. Big Tone always brings us into the zone.
That's the one. Big Tone brings us into the zone. And this time we are going to have a riot of a zone, guys, because we are joined by, I've said it, I've been dubious because I don't want to offend any other promotion, but my personal favorite promotion within the UK. So I am so happy right now to welcome James and Sean of Riot Cabaret to the Ministry of Wrestling. Guys, how you doing?
Very good. Very pleased to be in the Big Tone zone. I love that.
And I'd like to clarify, when I say I'm a wrestling fan, I don't watch wrestling, I don't watch it on TV, but I go to as many UK shows as I can. So, yeah.
That's pretty much what I think like our wrestling fandom has kind of ended up in since we started running the company. Our lives have just become taken over with Riot Cabaret, so the thought of watching more wrestling on telly in our downtime is just kind of slightly terrifying. So I haven't watched much TV for a very long time.
Yeah, it is a challenge, isn't it? It is a challenge indeed. Right, so guys, right, I'm going to turn the screen up a bit and change the format a bit more and give you guys the spotlight. Well, it's on me, but over to you right now. And just ask, like, give us a bit
there
of
we
background.
are. They're the boys.
Yourselves. There we are, guys. These are the two guys. These are the two guys. So just a bit of background about yourselves into like your earliest wrestling memories and where your first passion of wrestling kicked off.
Earliest wrestling memory. So I got into wrestling because I saw WWF Warzone in a PlayStation magazine. Nice. And I'd never seen anything about wrestling ever, but it had a create a wrestler option. And I was like, that's a bit of me. Like, I just thought about creating myself in a game was like a really cool idea. And then I got that game, loved it. And then my mum taped Mankind versus Rock, Last Man Standing, and Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold in a cage from St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 99. And that was the first wrestling I ever saw. And then we were hooked watching it Sky One Sunday mornings ever since.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think for me, it was very much that early kind of the ones where they would have on like a Saturday morning, they'd have you do a SmackDown from earlier on in the week, but it was like the kind of 1 hour version of it. It was all really kind of cut and abridged and stuff. And it was my kind of thing after we'd play football on a Saturday morning with my friends from school. We'd go and watch it. And then I think I got the first SmackDown game on PS1 was like my first real one. I didn't particularly know who a lot of the guys in the game were, but that was the thing that I remember kind of really hooked me in at first. And watching, it was around Royal Rumble 99, I think, which was the I Quit match with Mankind and Rock, which was just about the worst thing that a 9-year-old possibly see. Really,
it's a miracle that we managed to get through 1999 still being allowed to watch it. I think like my mum really regretted the decision when like Big Boss Man was stealing coffins, feeding dogs to people,
like hung by the Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's a moment in the pre-show, the pre-match, like Hype VT for the Mankind v Rock, where it's like, when like the classic thing is like, oh, your mum walks in the room at the worst possible moment. It's normally someone like in their underwear or something. My mum walked in the room right at the point where Mankind is like, I've been wrapped in barbed wire, I've been blown up, and it's showing like all this footage from him like in the barbed wire death matches, and she's just like, no, absolutely not. And so the tape trading had to be quite secretive for a couple of years after that.
Yeah. Did you guys ever catch it on Channel 4?
Big time, yeah. So that was what we always used to love, is it was like, because we didn't have Sky part, we had like Sky One, but that was when it was still kind of sort of free to air. We had like, when you'd be watching it on Sky One, and it would always be like, oh, this pay-per-view's on Sky Box Office or whatever. But when there'd be one where it would be like, contact your local operator, and that was code for it's on Channel 4. Come on. So yeah, I think
That was huge, man. When they started putting it on Channel 4, like that was talk of the playground. Big moments when I think it was like, is it Royal Rumble 2000?
Yeah, Invasion was on there as well. That was a good Channel 4. Those tapes got worn out, man.
I was a tape supplier. I was a Sky guy.
Yeah.
So, supplier of tape.
You were the guy.
I was the guy that used to come in. Velocity and all of that.
But there is something in that, though, isn't there? Like, it's kind of like how with things like, things like Spotify, you're kind of spoiled in terms of finding the music that you like right now, because you can just type anything in and you can just find it. Like back when it was a case of like, if there was a band or a song that you really loved, you had to like track down the CD, and if it wasn't particularly well known, if it wasn't a popular stuff, like finding it could be it was like a bit of a quest. It's the same thing with like wrestling tapes. It was like, oh, you've got this.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Any new wrestling that we found or just managed to see was just such like a huge moment. Like I remember just sitting down, I hadn't seen any new wrestling. You had to wait a week before to get any. And then I got Judgment Day 98 on VHS. And I just watched the out of that. And I was like, every match was amazing. I go back now and it's like, did that stand the test of time? But I was well into Al Snow and Mark Mero.
Yo, Snow's the man.
Snow's the man. Yeah.
We all had our favorites, man. Like growing up, like who was your guys' favorite wrestlers?
I was a big Kane guy for my sins.
Is Kane a for my sinsy wrestler?
Well, he is kind of now.
Yeah. I can't fault you on that. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like, obviously in that kind of era, you're Austin, you're Rock. It's this kind of thing. I mean, I was always Austin was the one who was the most fun because the Rock was such a great seller that kind of like I felt more peril for the Rock, which is kind of slightly weird. I used to hate when he lost because he was so great at looking like he had the absolute hell beat out of him. In terms of like slightly more kind of, I don't know, ones that you would kind of not necessarily immediately name. I loved for some reason Ken Shamrock. I loved Steve Blackman. There was something about like me being quite the nerdy kid that I was, that I just loved the blokes that looked and were legit nails. There was something that I found just really kind of exciting about that. So yeah, Jeff Hardy as well. Both Hardys were my in the tag division. They were my ones.
I was going back to Al Snow at my dad's 40th. I was going around and I drew a face on a balloon and I was calling it Head. And so I'm going around to all my dad's mates going, what does everybody want? Head, 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 head. And they're all finding it like the funniest thing ever. And I was like, these guys get wrestling. They love Al Snow. That's the only thing they're finding funny about this 11-year-old going around asking for Head.
Sean popping the boys at his dad's birthday.
After that, I got to ask though, with all that, what was the motivation to start Riot Cabaret?
So we were over in New York for WrestleMania 19, and we were
39. Wait.
Sorry, it's WrestleMania because they stopped numbering it. It was in 2019. That's what I mean. So WrestleMania in the year of our Lord 2019, and it was they weren't calling them by the numbers at that point, so I've no idea which actual chronology one it was. But we were out there for we did NXT Takeover Brooklyn. We did Monday Night Raw. We did a bunch of other stuff. We did loads of wrestling-based business that week, and we basically had kind of gorged ourselves on wrestling. And we were several kind of pints of Guinness deep at this lovely Irish bar just opposite the Barclays Centre called McMahon's, a bit more inauspiciously named now, but at the time, we were perfectly happy there. And it's just nothing to do with wrestling either. That's the weird thing. It's just an Irish sports bar. So, of course, WrestleMania weekend, there's a bar called McMahon's.
Banged out.
Yeah, absolutely packed to the gills. So we are between sort of debating with American wrestling fans whether or not Baron Corbin was the greatest of our time or all time. We were kind of just deciding, like, if you were going to run your company, like, what would you do? And we did all the normal fantasy booking stuff. But then again, by the end of the week, we'd seen so much wrestling, it all kind of blended into one, that you just went, well, if you were going to do something with it, you'd have to do something different, and you'd have to look at a different way of kind of presenting it, because we'd seen so much like great wrestling and we were in absolute heaven with it, but it felt like our brains were so saturated with the same kind of thing. So that was where the idea kind of originally sprang from. And then I think Sean and I have both got the same sort of hyperfixational kind of brain, where we just kind of, an idea is incapable of just existing on its own. we just kind of go, okay, well, how are we going to do that? And then it's sort of it's a joke that got out of hand, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when we were kind of thinking about it, I think the temptation when starting a wrestling company is to make something in the image of the things that you love the most about wrestling, which is absolutely nothing wrong with that, I think. But for us, we wanted to make something where what can we put on that's going to make new people come and watch wrestling? Like, we know that this is great. We've got some of the best talent in the world in this country, but how could we showcase that to a wider audience? And what can we do on our shows that are going to make someone who doesn't get wrestling, never seen wrestling, be like, oh, actually, that's something that I want to go and see. So that was kind of the thinking when we were putting the early Riot Cabaret shows together.
And that's been kind of borne out as well in so much of what people say to us, and like the audience feedback or feedback from our friends who come and see the shows, who could not give the tiniest shit about wrestling, as they come and they just go kind of, oh, like, I'd never been to see a wrestling show before, but like I loved it. Or like, I'm bringing all my friends from work and like they've never been to see a show, but like I've told them that they're going to love it. And then that's exactly what happens. And then people come back and they come back and they come back and they kind of say like, oh, you know, I started with you guys and then I discovered this company. I started going to Progress, or I started going to Rev Pro as well, because you guys kind of opened the door to how much awesome wrestling there is there. And I think that's one of the loveliest bits about it as well, as Sean says, like the scene over here in the UK is amazing. British wrestlers are among the best in the world. We all know that. And if there's anything that we can do to help like a new pair of eyes, a light on the incredible talent that's over here, then that's pretty awesome as well.
Right. That was going to come up a bit later on, but I am actually going to like just transition into that question, because that is one of the things that I've seen. Like, one of the things that caught my eye, and was an easy sell to all my friends were like, wrestling? You what? You know, come to a show. Is I can say to them, this is the company that will bring you Mr. Blobby. This is the company that will bring you Brittany versus Christina. This is the company that will give you Bob the Builder. Now, how does this idea come about to be like, we're going to use this and bring in the non-wrestling fans? How important is it for you guys? Like, we have a strong community, you know, but again, as you said, there are other shows out there. Like Ignite is another company I absolutely love, just around the corner from me, but it's really family focused. So, you know, some people might be like, a little bit kiddie to me, X, Y, Z. This one is for the adults, but has all the craziness that you can remember from your childhood and beyond. How important is that for you guys?
I think it's like when we were thinking about bringing new wrestling fans in, you have to kind of latch on to something that they already get. Because I think we forget how much people actually just, like, if you're new to wrestling, it is quite mental. It's quite mad. It's like a thing. If you've never really watched it or understood, like, why is this happening? What's going on? Like, we know it's like predetermined, but why are people watching it? So you need to kind of find a thing where people are going to be like, oh yeah, but I get that. So it being framed as like, this is a night out with loads of cool characters and music and entertainment that you like, that's something which people can get on board with. Like, oh, what, there's Bob the Builder, Christina, Brittany. I know what that is. It just closes that gap of getting new audience to understand what it is. And then once they're in and they've been kind of brought in because of the back of that, then they see like Michael Oku, they see Mandrews, and they see Robbie X, and they see how amazing like the actual professional wrestling side of things are. And then they're like, oh my God, like I never actually realized it was this good. Now I've seen it up close.
I think you're never going to grow something like independent wrestling. I don't know about other countries, but like, I think certainly in the UK, I think it's never going to just expand on its own by just putting on the best wrestling show you can. You're going to bring back the same group of people that already love wrestling, but you know, all that's going to be effectively is just like the same people that know the thing they like. And actually, if you're going to try and get fresh eyes on it, you're going to try and bring people in to show them all the stuff that Sean is kind of describing. You need that initial hook and that thing that makes people find it, like first of all. Because I remember like when I was kind of, I took a bit of a time off from just kind of being a wrestling fan when I was kind of late teens, early 20s. I just kind of got out of the habit of watching it and didn't really. And then it was just when Progress was on the up, they just started running shows at the Ballroom. And I just happened upon some like sizzle reel of theirs they put on YouTube. And it was just all of this stuff that looked like I was going to loads of like kind of rock gigs at the time, very much like my sensibilities. I knew the Ballroom as a venue, and I just saw this thing that just said like pro wrestling for grown-ups. And I just went, that sounds like heaps of fun. But that was just to me as a sort of a legacy wrestling fan, you know, a bit of a lapsed fan. So our thing was very much kind of like, okay, that's not most people. So how can we make something that if it does catch your eye and you have never, ever seen wrestling, maybe the last time you did was when you were a kid, what's going to be the thing that sort of hooks you in.
And then you're just going back to what we were saying earlier about how we all got into wrestling. Like for me, the entry point was video games, which was a thing that I got at the time. I don't think I'd have necessarily have gone straight into watching like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio put on a classic at Nitro, but because I understand like video games, that was my initial route in to wrestling, and it's kind of finding like what that common ground is for new audience.
You had WWF Warzone. I had WWF Attitude, which was the sequel to that.
The number of times I just kept going into Electronics Boutique. Oh,
yes.
Gosh, there we go. Throwback.
Remember those guys? And just being like, is WWF Attitude out yet? Have you got WWF Attitude yet? Before I realized that there was like official release dates for games. I just thought they might have a copy like just laying around.
No, but you guys have built a hell of a product. It's fair to say you're definitely among the biggest promotions in the UK right about now. And you're so unique as well. Like Riot Cabaret, even that in itself is a unique name. How did you guys come up with it?
So I think my kind of background is in theatre in large part, and there was I work a lot in kind of immersive theatre and kind of experiential nights out where there are a lot of those kind of, you know, slightly more cabaret elements, a few of which we've introduced, you know, right over the years. You know, we've had some like, amazing drag kings and drag queens performing at the shows, and that we're always looking for that slightly more variety aspect of it. But weirdly, I don't think it kind of, when we were putting the name together, I don't think that was at that point completely the vision for it. I think that kind of happened quite organically because we went through so many other names, and they were kind of like, if you were doing like a bit of a generic, you know, new indie wrestling company, you'd have probably ticked off a whole bunch of these names that we were kind of going through, and just none of them felt quite right. And it just, when we put that combination of words together, we just kind of went, oh yeah, hold on, there is something there. There's something there. And then from that, that was like the acorn a little bit. And then the shoots of the various ideas, like your Cabaret Carnage matches and, you know, Mr. Blobby showing up and things like that. Like all that stuff just kind of starts to percolate outwards from there. So yeah, that was the starting point, really.
That is interesting. So we've got the name.
Oh, I'm here too.
My bad.
God, I know. I'm not anything. I'm rarely on these shows. I barely get to speak to y'all, but this is one of my favorite things that they call me up and like, don't you available? So yeah, I'm here. So yeah. But see, the thing is, I'm a fan. Everyone here is a fan. But what is it like transition from a fan to becoming booker?
Poacher turned gamekeeper, yeah.
Do you know what? When your first initial thought is that it will make you be extra critical about wrestling and you think of it in a whole different way. But what's actually happened is that you just genuinely appreciate any wrestling that's happening, because it's so hard to actually put on and get together and make the things happen, that even when you're just watching wrestling, you're like, wow, like, well, at least they've managed to get the show on.
Fair play, guys. Go on.
Like, I think it is interesting in terms of, I think, coming from like a fan stance, or coming from someone, because we're not wrestlers. I think when you're coming from the outside of the business like that, I think a lot of what we had to do in the early stage is building trust with talent in performers to make sure that, you know, we understand and respect what they do. We appreciate like things like their safety and the things that they sacrifice to be able to be as good and as talented as they are. I think that was really, really important when we first started. But yeah, I think that's been mainly the main transition.
Yeah, for sure. And
just appreciate the whole thing a lot more.
As much as anything as well, it helps you get a real appreciation for the kind of granular detail of things like booking and narrative and all the kind of reasons why, if you're a fan and you're going like, we're picking holes in something, kind of like I've done this umpteen times watching wrestling over the years, just kind of going, oh, why did they do that and not this? And you sort of, your initial reaction is because you kind of go like, well, I wouldn't have done it like that if I was in charge. But actually quite a lot of the time, probably the thing that you wanted to do in the first place is the same thing.
It's probably what we wanted to do.
Yeah, it's probably the original plan. And then just loads of other stuff has happened, whether it's, you know, injuries or availability or people being unable to do X, Y, and Z for other reasons. So you're quite often just kind of meandering your way, you know, along to the end goal that you're trying to achieve. But the beats that you might hit along the way aren't always the ones that people would expect. And a lot of the time there's a very good reason for that. So it's given me like just a much more appreciation for for that kind of putting together the kind of narrative that fans find satisfying. So often if there's a story that I am getting sucked up in and I'm kind of going, oh, why did they do it like that? And not like this. Go, shut up, James. Wait, shut up.
Like imagine if in Harry Potter in chapter 3, Ron Weasley does his ACL and he's now out of the book, or like, you know, or Hagrid's actually like, do you know what? I don't think my character would do that in chapter 5. It's like, yeah, but we've kind of.
It doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah, Hagrid's covenant don't work for me, brother.
to be fair, we get very little of that. It's very rare that. Well, I don't think we've ever had it that doesn't work for me, brother. From any of our talent, we got a very collaborative process with them, and we always want them to feel like they can come to us with ideas and always have input into their creative. So I think people kind of through that, they do trust us as well. Like if we jump on a call with a bunch of wrestlers and go, okay, we've got this idea, we're going to put it out there and we want to know what you think. We want to hear your ideas as well. I think people kind of respond quite well to that. And they know that narratively they're in safe hands. We're not going to do anything that's going to make them look like, you know, a plonker or damage, you know, what their character is in any way.
Nice. So I'm going to pick at something that Sean said, because I know it's not it's got truth to it, but there's a hint of a lie to it. And I know by your smile, James, you can see exactly where I'm going.
I know what you're talking about, mate.
Yeah, because you said, Sean, we're not wrestlers. Now, I've heard it in the Clapham Grand. It wasn't anything else, James. So it's not from a private convo. I know that you've been in the ring before. So I'm just going to ask, have you ever been in the ring, Sean? And what was your experiences like, if like collectively or just for yourself, James, to train as a wrestler?
I trained for, I think I did like one of the beginner courses at the old Projo. And I think if I'd have put every ounce of my being into trying to, you know, put every effort in, I think I would have been something that you could describe as the shits. I was just like, I feel like in life, it's really important to play to one's strengths. And being in that ring just wasn't really one of them. I really I enjoyed it, but I just feel like I was nowhere near going to be the standard that they would ever bring me any sort of satisfaction. But yeah, it is you again, you just, I feel like it's a very important part of also doing what we're doing at the moment is, again, you have a real appreciation. Like it's really hard. It's really, really hard to do. So yeah, it was, my in-ring career is over.
Totally separate question. I know it's not part of the questions, but which hurt more the first time you did it? Running the ropes or taking a bump?
Ropes.
Oh my God.
I was about to say, because I was also quite skinny as well. So like, that's always, because it gets right in between the ribs. I would say, yeah, definitely the ropes more than the bumps.
Especially when like you go and they just like tighten them up just that little bit, you know, they turn that turnbuckle just a couple more ratchets, and then you really know about it.
No, but honestly though, it sounds like the starting the whole thing from the ground up was like a dream come true. I imagine it was very nerve-wracking on that first night. How did you feel before and after?
Great question.
So I think that we actually, obviously, as I say, the idea came to us in 2019 and we kind of worked from there. And our initial launch date for the show was April 2020. So that was when 14th of April 2020, we had a different venue kind of in the middle of Mayfair. So we were going to run like a full-on kind of almost like an immersive night out kind of thing. We were going to do like this, basically like this kind of underground fight club sort of thing. But that was the kind of creative that we had for it. But in terms of the branding and everything like that, we hadn't realized that at all. It was very kind of like the vision wasn't fully there. And actually, we were completely devastated when obviously the show got pulled because of COVID. And we were just like, oh God, we've been building up to this thing for more than a year and now it's gone, and we were devastated. Actually, it ended up being the best thing that could have happened to us, because it gave us a chance to kind of go back to the drawing board a bit and go, right, well, how do we want to present this company? What actually is Riot Cabaret? What's the thing we're selling, not just to the fans, but to the talent and everyone working behind the scenes as well. And obviously with speaking out and everything, there then became the question of trust became even more important. And how can we just absolutely 100% put our best foot forward? So actually then it took us until June of 2022 to run the first show. So we were about 3 years it was in the works. There
were times I was like, is this actually going to happen? Is this going to happen? I got myself really ready for it to happen.
Yeah. And then
it did.
Yeah.
Then it did.
Show one was just the kind of like, when it finished and when we did the main, there's like a moment at the end of show one where when Mambo's won the title and I'm just kind of left there in the ring in the confetti and I'm just start crying uncontrollably. And that one to work. That was I was genuine because it was just an outpouring of 3 years worth of like relief and catharsis and, like Sean says, doubt. Is this thing ever going to happen? Are people going to come? Because we took such a big risk of putting it in this venue, and the dice roll that we did was we want to put it in a venue that feels like a big deal and that adds a sense of grandeur and spectacle to the show, because we're going to treat the wrestlers working for us like they're a big deal. Because if we tell people that these wrestlers are a big deal, they'll believe that these people are a big deal. And part of that's the venue and it's the presentation of the overall product. So we took such a big risk of having a venue as large as that. We were running before we could walk, putting it on at that venue. But they have ended up being the perfect partner to us. Every single Riot show is at the Grand. They really share our ethos in terms of having a welcoming environment for people to come into and just have the best experience that they can. That's inclusive for everyone. So that's really, really important as well. Yeah, that was my kind of main takeaway of the first show.
I was a bit more brutal after the first show. I was a little bit more brutal. I think I came backstage and then we had like a little sort of green room area, and I see James in there and he's in tears and he's looking at me like we're going to have this really emotional moment. And I was like, stop fucking crying. We haven't done anything yet. Like, we've done one show.
3 years of work.
Yeah. And I was like, no, right, come on. The hard work starts here. This is where the Riot Cabaret journey begins. Then I think we may have had like a little hug. But no tears.
That tells you everything, the difference.
That's the dynamic. There's the dynamic. He can get emotional.
I see y'all pretty much already answered the question, but I just want to know, what made you go for the Clapham Grand? Why did you pick that in the first place?
So a friend of mine is a musician who's played a couple of gigs there, and I've been to see one or two of his shows at that venue, and I sort of through him I'd met the venue manager, Ali Wolves, like amazing
tremendous
dude.
Man,
yeah, just a wizard of London nightlife, and so I kind of had that introduction there, and we were doing all of these kind of site visits. We went to a lot of places. There was one day where I went on site visits to about 4 or 5 different venues across London. And it was on the day where, do you remember when it was really windy at Heathrow? And it was the day when Big Jet TV went viral and everyone was watching these planes landing. And so that was just I was going.
Feels like a more innocent time, doesn't it?
Much
more innocent time in the world.
Going around all these venues, like doing these site visits and meeting all these venue managers. We went to like some really good ones, but they were just kind of like theatre setups. To have had it work, you've had to have the ring like really far away, and everyone would have just been sat there like looking up at it. We wanted it to be in the round. But I was just bouncing between these different venues, just watching Big Jet TV on my phone, which is like an absurd day. But one of the venues that I did end up speaking to, I just said to my friend, I was like, "Can you put me in touch with Ali at the Grand? I don't know if they'll be interested, but I just want to see if it might be the right fit." And he sort of agreed to take a bit of a risk on us on the first show. And I think he just went. He really saw something there, because by no means were we the finished article on that first show. But I think he definitely saw something in there where he was like, this is completely unlike anything else that we've got. Because I know they'd had wrestling there in the past, and they were just like a little bit unsure about where it kind of fit into their overall creative structure, really, because they've got so much fun stuff that goes on there. And they just weren't quite sure about whether it fitted into their kind of current ecosystem. So yeah, just having the chance to sit down with him and kind of tell him what we were really about was invaluable, and there we ended up.
Yeah, got to give James his flowers for that one, because I personally thought that we were going too big too soon on the Grand. I thought it was a huge gamble, because it's a 500 seat venue, and to start from there, I thought might have been too big for us. But it was again invaluable. And again, I think that was a good lesson in just taking that risk. And I think there's been a couple of times in the history of Riot where there's been, things that I think before I'd have been more conservative about. But I think the lesson learned from the Clapham Grand is sometimes you got to go big or go home with these things. And in the end, we haven't been stung yet, but it's, more often than not, they pay off.
How many people was there that first night? Do you remember?
Oh, that's a good
sold out, of course. Sold out.
Good question. Oh, I wish. I wish.
That's what they're doing now. We can't even get a box nowadays. But anyway,
You know what I'm saying? They're so quick.
Funny story about the boxes though on that first show. So for that first show, James had two groups in the boxes. He had one full of his mad actor drunk friends, and one with his agent, a showbiz legend of 40 years, remarkable lady, and a few. Who else was in that box? Your agent?
You were just kind of the office of
dignitaries. Let's say dignitaries.
People
right?
very integral to the overall health of my other career outside of Riot Cabaret. Yeah.
So we had a sensible box and a drunkard's box. And in that first show, we were going to have Session Moth appear in the Jukebox Rumble. And the fans had picked for her to come out to enter Sandman. So we were going to have her come out of the drunk friends box, smashing beers on her head and doing all that from the box, and then come down to the ring with Enter Sandman playing. So she was going to come out from the box opposite where I was sat, and I'm looking in that box. And I think did Murdoch, I think, was in the balcony because he was doing a run-in on that show. He texts me and saying, "There's a nice lady in the Session Moth box," and I'm looking over, and James's agent is in the bloody Session Moth box. They've got mixed up, so the drunkards have ended up in the wrong box, and James's agent is in the Session Moth box. And I'm like, "Is your agent supposed to be in the Session Moth box?" He's like, "No, definitely not, definitely not." And I think this was in the show, so I think this was like during the first half. I'm trying, like, again, first ever show.
TK Cooper and Mark Haskins are tearing the house down at this point.
Yeah.
When running around like, fuck.
And I'm like, I'm like messaging Murdoch, what? Like, what? And they're like, right, we need to tell Kaz, like, to get tell Session Moth that she needs to go to the different box. Does she know how to get there? Shit.
That point, well, like, have you seen the scene from Spinal Tap where they get lost backstage? And that was what we didn't know the venue at that point either. So I'm running around like kind of like Basil Fawlty trying to find Session Moth Martina, like, where's the dressing room? Like dragging her down and like being like, you know, I said I was going through this door. You're actually going through this door now. And meanwhile,
she's wide-eyed and scared.
Who's this terrifying man dragging me around backstage to the Clapham Grand? But yeah, and then luckily we got her out into the drunkards box, who I have to say delivered. They really, really delivered the goods on that occasion. They gave us a lot of good sizzle reel material. So God love them.
Yeah, still very much use it to this day.
Definitely, with a background story like that, it's earned its right to be used all these years later. But talking of like the dynamics of you being up where you are, James, I'm Sean, and James, you're down in the ring. How did you guys decide who was going to be where, or that you were actually going to be as involved in it, as opposed to just being the bookers in the back?
So there was, I think, two things. One, budget, literally just budget. Like, cheaper for us to do it for nothing than anything else. I think again, thinking of like what our backgrounds are. Like my background's more in kind of radio, working in sports, broadcasting, and obviously James, I think, with his theatre background, I'd say as a face of the company is more aligned with what our brand is. And I always think with wrestling companies, like whoever is the front man of it, make sure it's synonymous with your brand. And I think in those early days of Progress, Jim Smallman was so synonymous with that brand in the way that he would talk to the audience, the way he connected with the audience. And he was also very, had synergy with that kind of like punk rock pro wrestling thing. We wanted to make sure that the MC of our show lined up with the rather, fabulous spectacularness of Riot Cabaret, and then James with his theatre background and his snappy suits. Very much. I think there was just a natural fit for us to end up in those roles.
And as well as that, like just to kind of give Sean his very much due kudos as well, is like having someone there on the commentary desk. Working with Bradshaw, who obviously is amazing. Dave Bradshaw, like the voice of British wrestling,
the best commentator, I think, one of the best commentators in wrestling, full stop for my money.
So good, and him as a lead commentator is just untouchable in our view. But I think having Sean there, running colour with him, where just having someone who understands the granular detail of the stories that we're trying to tell as well is so helpful. So, you know, if ever anything kind of slightly diverges from the story we're trying to tell in the ring, or just needs like a little bit more clarity or clarification, Sean just automatically knows which direction to turn the car to get it back on the road, or to what kind of color he needs to bring out the story that we're trying to tell even more, and to enhance the brilliant work that everyone's doing in the ring. So like having him there as well on the comms, just helping really convey the narrative and make it like crystal clear and therefore satisfying for everyone who's watching it after the fact is invaluable too.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'll tell you one of the things I really love about Riot Cabaret, man. You guys got some awesome banging tunes. Like, listen, even when you come out to the ring, your entrance music, man, it really gets everyone hyped. I've also noticed that, like, some of the wrestlers, because obviously we go to a lot of indies. So you notice that a lot of the wrestlers have the same tunes wherever they go. But for Riot, they're all kind of unique. Some of the standout ones is the tunes the Briots come out to, and Nina Samuels especially. It was an awesome live performance at the last show. But like, how did you guys make the decision like that you was gonna like use different music, and how much of a focus is that for you?
So I think when we used to go to Progress, like a massive part that I think accentuated the whole experience was the music, because a lot of the wrestlers all had, again, tunes for their entrance, which would just get you massively hyped, because you'd just be belting out Psycho Killer when Ciampa was coming out, and then you would just be there ready, hyped for the match. I remember when I first went to a Progress show, the first people who came out were FSU to Party Hard, and I just remember that music hitting, everyone's on their feet going mad to that music, and then it just sets the atmosphere for the rest of the show. And again, like as I was saying earlier, and I'll sound like a broken record, it's just finding those ways to connect to audience who may not get what's going on. Again, if you've never seen wrestling before, but I get this tune's good, and I understand that like this tune means this, I'm already learning about the character because I recognize this piece of music and I'm kind of involved. So that was kind of the thinking about it, to kind of make it more. It was literally just to contribute to atmosphere and connect a new audience.
Big time, and that key thing, that audience involvement, I think that's the most important part of it. Because if you're a slightly more casual discoverer of Riot Cabaret, just having that initial thing where you feel permission in some ways to kind of get involved. Because if you're not a regular, goer of the wrestling shows, like, there's loads of chants going on and everything, and that's great and it adds so much to the atmosphere, but you might not feel kind of able to join in on the chants because you sort of feel like, oh yeah, that's not my thing or whatever. But yeah, I can sing along to Backstreet Boys or something like that, or I can sing along to Cascada, and then you kind of you loosen up a little bit, and you maybe then join in some of the other songs and some of the chants and some of the singing, and then you're part of the tribe straight away. And it's one of the loveliest things about our audience, is like it's not a gatekeepy audience at all. I think like everyone there is just really pleased to kind of share this thing with the people that they like. There's because we pitched it at that level where it's like, everyone's welcome, and you can come in and you can bring your friends from work, you can bring your girlfriend, you can bring anyone that has never seen wrestling before, and we are certain they'll have a really lovely time. The music's definitely part of that, and just brings people in and makes them part of the family.
Just following on that question just a tad, is that also what helped you guys pick like the names of your shows? Because you've got stuff like Slamamia, Arm Drags, and I'm gonna butcher them, so I won't go for
Arm Drags and Glad Rags.
Yeah, there we are. And then we've got Thunder Road, which I know also led into something else. But having like musical takes on the shows, is that something that you thought would help catch the casuals or the non-wrestling fans?
Yeah, I think it's just a little suggestion of what we're about. I think, because I know sometimes there's a tendency like let's go for something a little bit random and a little bit inside and a little bit in jokey. But again, it's kind of trying to just find something that people can get. Like if it's called Slamamia, there's probably going to be some music. It's probably going to be a little bit theatrical. There's going to be something along those lines. So again, it's just finding something like nice and easy and relatable.
Yeah, 100%. And it's as much as anything, like sometimes we are inspired by kind of current events, or sometimes there's, like you say, with Thunder Road, sometimes there's something specifically planned for that show that we go, this would work. But like with Arm
We
Dragons,
hope it works.
with Arm Dragons and Glad
And
Rags,
if it
for
all falls
example.
through, no one ever really needs to know why it was called Thunder Road.
With Arm Drags and Glad Rags, for example, that was the week where actually British wrestling legend and Office star Ewan McIntosh passed away. So, you know, it seemed only fitting that, you know, we should sort of recognize him. And so we sort of named a show in honor of him for Arm Drags and Glad Rags.
And honestly, sometimes we're just banging our heads like, what are we actually going to name the show? I genuinely want to name the show. Like just going through some real bad, smelly suggestions.
See,
They've
when
all
y'all
been cool
come up with
so
a name-
far.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure we'll hit a duff one at some point.
Nah, no matter what, they don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like just as you said before, you got the show called with Thunder Rosa. How on earth did y'all like link up? And she's your champion now.
So Thunder was at our show at All Singing All Dancing 2023, and I think we, and ahead of All Singing All Dancing 2024, I think what's been really great about working with Thunder is that we get each other. I think we're kind of on the exact same page on like what we kind of want wrestling to be, what our ambitions are for wrestling. And again, Thunder Rosa is one of these people who wants to see it to bring new people in and wants to use her influence in what she does to help people outside of like the wrestling bubble and grow audience through that way. So I think when we just started having conversations, we just knew that we'd be able to do something cool. And there was things that she wanted to do in terms of like how she performs and has her character that she wouldn't potentially have the opportunity to do in other wrestling spaces. And we were like, you want to sing? We're the place to go. Like, so that I think it came about because there was just like a synergy there in what we want from wrestling. And I cannot speak highly enough of what it's been like to work with her. It's been like very inspirational and also just a total pleasure to work with.
Yeah. She was at the, as Sean says, that first All Singing All Dancing show for the initial All In show at Wembley. And she was in the crowd. She was recording stuff, her vlog all weekend, and she was watching the show. And then I think it was one of the most surreal kind of moments of running the company actually, where because we had no idea she was there. She didn't phone ahead. There was no sort of suggestive guest list or anything like that. And I think she got recognized by the fans front of house towards the end of the first half of the evening. So she sort of found her way backstage to kind of like, it was like Hard Day's Night, I think, just trying to escape from like the fans who were super excited to see her. And I came backstage to Gorilla from announcing the end of the first half. And I just turned around and just Thunder Rosa's just there. And I was like, hi, how did you get here? What's happening? And so that was the moment that contact was first made.
Yeah, and then they came and sat up with me and Bradshaw by us for comms, and then I could just see that as they were watching the whole of the show, that they were really engaged by just how different everything was, because the finale of that show was Crowley and Session Moth singing Disney tunes together to balloon balls and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was how that all came about.
Love it.
I'm just upset I'm missing all these shows.
But here's the thing. This is exactly what I was going to say. Because if you were hearing all of this and you were like, why have I missed this? What is going on? Recently, these two gentlemen, these two legends in the game, have released Riot Gold, an on-demand service where you can catch it all. So, guys, what was the spark that said, you know what, let's release an on-demand?
I think every company wants to have an on-demand service kind of as part of their strategy, right, at some point. But you basically just eventually, I mean, Big Tony's not wrong. Big
Sorry, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, you know.
But I think there is something in that where it's like your trust with the audience and the relationship you have with your fans is so important that, like, if you are asking people to part with their money, and particularly now when times are really tough, and particularly if they, attend your shows regularly and things like that, we appreciate it's not a nothing ask. So we sort of waited for so long because we were just kind of, you know, we only run shows every couple of months. We're not like monthly shows or even more frequently than that, like some other companies are. We'd love to be, but I think at the moment it's just not something that we have the kind of capacity for. And I think just taking time to build up that video library so that if someone is maybe thinking about subscribing to Riot Gold, they can look at the sort of the tiles of all the videos that we've got and just kind of go, oh, there's quite a lot here actually. And these thumbnails all look pretty fun. And I can see there's like an arc and the company's been on a bit of a journey. So it feels like you're launching with a product that has a bit of value. Whereas I think if we'd like launched a VOD after maybe show 1 or 2,
There's just 2 lonely videos sat there for £6 a month. They'd be like, who are these chances here?
So you're kind of like at that point as well, we know more about how the company works. We know more about what our fans like. We know more about what kind of extra perks they're going to find interesting. So, you know, in the fullness of time with Riot Gold, there's going to be early access to merch. We're already doing early access to tickets, which I don't think kind of makes sense to do until you've got that real kind of build up of your loyal hardcore fans. Exclusive merch launches in the future. So like things like that just kind of reward the people that are in that fold with us. But I don't think you can do that as an attractive prospect until you've got a good bit of video kind of library behind you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I would definitely say it's something.
And that's how we get a balcony.
It's something to like, you know, for anyone watching this to like invest their time in, because the shows have been all excellent. AJ especially has already said it's his favorite like show to go to. I know me and Dan absolutely love it to bits. Yeah, like, you know, there's so much of a prosperous future for you guys. So I'm just wondering, what is your hopes and dreams for the future of Riot Cabaret?
Oh, I'll go.
I was trying to just give by some thinking time for that.
I think, again, it's kind of like, this is a bit of a boring answer, but it is just to make it so as many people kind of know about it and come to the shows and are also having a lovely time. And I think what would be really good is for us is to see that have a wider effect on like the wrestling scene as a whole. So if, you know, if our success then has a knock on to everybody else, and that means, you know, more shows, more bookings for people, then that's, I think, would be really, really nice. And I think the other thing as well, like the more the shows get successful, you know, the more we can then put in to make them even better. So like with Thunder Rosa, I think that's been a product of people sticking with us and helping us and supporting us. And then we can kind of give back with something like Thunder Rosa, and, you know, whoever else we may find to work with in the future, who could offer something exciting and new to the fans. So I think that's it. That's kind of what I'd like. I'd just like to see us grow, and then hopefully that can benefit the scene as a whole.
Yeah. And just to kind of, I think my one would be, I'm just wanting to create something like you guys are being so kind of kind in saying, is like something that people really love and feel at home at. Because kind of like, I know what it's like to really love something and to feel like you've got, you've found your kind of tribe in a sense. And if we can be creating an environment where people feel like, okay, whatever else is going on out there in the world, whatever kind of madness is happening, I know that every 2 months, 6 weeks, I can go to this show and I'm going to be with people that care about me, that accept me. I'm going to be surrounded by, you know, like-minded folks who are just there for a really nice time, and to make sure that everyone else has a really nice time as well. I think the more you're able to provide that kind of environment for people, it's not worth nothing. You know, I think times are hard right now, and if people are coming and they're seeing the shows and they're enjoying them, and it's helping them switch off from whatever the hell else is going on in their lives at that point, like that's a real privilege. And it's the same way I feel about theatre. Like I did a show in the West End during COVID. Like we were one of the first theatres to open again. People were just coming back to seeing stuff after lockdown, and you kind of see what it meant to them. People were like really emotional to be coming to see the show, and I think like you get that with Riot. Like people will tell us kind of what it means to them. And that's really kind of humbling, because you're going, this is our silly thing, and we book the match and we pull it all together, but actually the people that come through the door are the ones that really make it what it is. And the more we can kind of create that safe haven for people to just come and have a great time, that's awesome. And the more that happens, then that's great.
Absolutely love that.
Emotional a little bit there.
I was going to say, were you wiping away a little tear then?
No, I got emotional.
Still real to me,
So talking of that, and for the upcoming people, I think it's only right, guys, just while time is still on our side, to talk Jingle Bell Brawl. Would you guys like? I will put up the cards, and you guys can just talk away on each match. Let's start with this one.
Sweet.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
This is a match actually that's been a long time coming. In that Nico and Flash this match has been in the pipeline, but they keep avoiding each other. Nico was saying that this is one of the only the Welsh talent that has evaded him in a singles contest, and there's a little bit of spice going in this one after all singing, all dancing, and it's going to be interesting to see what that night holds for subculture as a whole.
It's going to be yeah. I mean, everybody knows what Flash Morgan Webster has achieved on the scene, and overseas over the years. He's one of the absolute top talents in the UK. His role in costing Nico Angelo his chance to win the Riot Cabaret World Championship at our biggest ever show at All Singing, All Dancing 24 has been obviously has been stuck in Nico's craw. Nico Angelo, for his part, is I'm going out on the limb and I'm saying he's the most underrated wrestler in the UK. That's my Nico Angelo take. That guy is pure magic. Everything, his look, his in-ring style, his music, his attitude is absolutely top draw.
A lot of love for Nico,
big time. And if we were putting together, a promotion where they were
which we are.
But no, but like,
if we were going to run a promotion, I'd book someone like Nico Angelo.
If someone had the vision to offer us NXT Europe, for example, and you were to kind of pick like who your first ballot talent,
that's interesting.
to kind of go like, right, you've got this number of spots on your roster. This is what you're going to build. We're going to contract them all. Nico Angelo is one of the first names on that team sheet, in my opinion. So I think this is going to be a huge first time ever match. It's got a lot of hate behind it as well.
Nice. Talking about a lot of hate. Let's go with this one.
The spirit of Christmas. Yes.
Look forward to this one.
Oh man, I'm really looking forward to this one as well.
It's going to be incredible. So I mean, Spike and Crowley are two of our day one Riot Cabaret real kind of figureheads. They've been on every single show, or they've been there, since the very first show, all the way back in June of 2022. This rivalry, this kind of feud, if you like, goes back actually to Fights and Delights, which was our 5th show. That was April, May 2023.
18 months ago, I think.
Yeah. When if you remember, there was a moment where Spike, who was as then the leader of the Greedy Vultures, they had Session Moth Martina, who was feuding with Charles Crowley at the time. They had her in a pretty dangerous position before Crowley made the save and sort of tricked Spike. Essentially, it made as if Crowley was going to put Session Moth Martina away and strike her with a chair, spun around and hit Spike, and that's where, in many ways, that's where the Session Twats were born as a duo that would team together. But clearly, Spike hasn't forgotten about that, and since, it sounds faintly ridiculous, which all the way back to last Christmas, saw Spike. That was the last we saw of the Sovereign Lord when he was put through a table by Mr. Blobby, which is not a sentence that any serious businessman should be saying. But that was the last we saw of the Sovereign Lord. But since he's been back, he has been completely on the warpath. And I think because Charles Crowley has been the thorn in his side for a very long time in Riot Cabaret, he's made it his mission to just take everything that Charles Crowley loves apart.
Well, that was the thing. So that moment of Crowley hitting Spike with the chair, that was the first fracture in the Vultures all falling apart. Everything else kind of fell apart from Spike from that one moment because he was so enraged by what he did. He put the Souls in the tag match against them, which they ended up losing. And then that lost him the Souls and then lost him Murdoch. And then in the end, he gets put through a table last Christmas and we don't see him again until now. He's returned to seek vengeance on everything that's happened. But but again, story stuff aside, I can't speak highly enough of those two guys in terms of like what they're like to work with as performers and that match is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Crowley said it best himself. It's going to be Charles Crowley and the Clapham Grand against Spike Trevay. So it's going to be a febrile atmosphere in there.
Going to be a big one. Just asking, is there going to be a gimmick to that match? Because we did see the belt come out, and it looked like everyone was chanting strap match at the last one. I'm just wanted to.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear the strap match.
Oh,
Didn't hear the strap match.
I heard you shout for a strap match on the review of the show.
I did.
Tony.
At the moment, it is currently slated to be a singles match.
Cool.
Slave for one fall.
I just thought I'd echo the Clapham Grand, but it's fine. Right, okay, now we're talking championship madness, guys. Let's go into this. The clash of former champs.
Woo, big.
What was it? Champagne wrestling
Yes.
is what I've heard this be described as. And I think that's probably what this is going to be. I don't think there's anything else you can use to describe that. I mean, you know, Cara Noir was never defeated as Riot Cabaret world champion. Michael Oku was his successor, and what a successor he was in holding that belt. And I just think
reigning champ,
longest reigning champ. And I just think, you know, that match is going to bang in it. It's going to be unbelievable. I'm really looking forward to it.
I think having Cara Noir back on the scene is just such huge news anyway. And we wanted to do this match for the longest time, even before Cara got hurt.
We've got old match graphics where we were ready to go with this one, but things like lots of plans changed. So we were originally going to do that at Fights and Delights in June, but we were then doing a show with Attack Pro Wrestling 2 months after, and we found out that the WWE had put SmackDown against us head to head.
The bust.
Bloody,
We're
I know.
going to be up in Manchester or something.
Yeah, no. So we're going head to head with SmackDown. So we were like, well, a match like Cara Noir and Michael Oku, let's put that on that show. So then, you know, that might attract people who want to come and see that match rather than go to SmackDown. But unfortunately, us waiting to do that match, Cara sadly got injured. So we weren't able to do that match then either. So it's been a match that has been slated and ready to go for ages. But now we've just had the stars have aligned for us to have it.
And I think in many ways as well, it's all the more interesting for where both men are in their careers, because Michael Oku at that point was, everyone I think knew how good he was, and he was one of the real fast rising stars on the British scene. But I think in the time since then, in almost 2 years it's elapsed since that point, he has become a star entirely in his own right. And I think the caliber of work that Mike has been putting out, not just on the British scene, but across the whole world, and the way he's been representing the British wrestling scene has been second to none. So I think I'm more excited to see this match now, knowing what Mike is capable of, and knowing the kind of admiration that the global wrestling scene has for him, and also knowing the kind of reign that he had as our champion. And also now that Cara Noir is back, he's got a fire under him like he's never had before. You know, we've seen a very different kind of Cara Noir in Riot Cabaret previously. You know, he's a kind of a darling everywhere else, but I think there's something about Riot Cabaret that just
I just like to say, like, is that what you're like everywhere else? Let's do something completely opposite.
as historically, something about Riot Cabaret has brought out the worst aspects of the Black Swan's personality. But since he's been back, there seems to be a bit more of a kind of rapprochement between him and the fans, because they're just delighted to see him back, as are we. So I think it's going to be a real mouth-watering prospect watching those two guys go at it.
Nice. I'm going to steal a bit of Big Tone's thunder on this one while still on this match. Is this the first time that you guys have paired Amira and Oku together?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. After we sort of debuted them as characters together at the last show with Amira's involvement in the I Quit match, but we've not had Amira appear as Michael's manager yet. So this will be the first time of having Amira in that role.
And I don't think we felt the need to do like a kind of a big narrative-led introduction of what that is, because I think they've done that in such a high profile and such a brilliant way elsewhere. I think most of our crowd are kind of quite clued into what they're doing, you know, elsewhere on the scene and around the world, that pretty soon everyone kind of figures out what the relationship is and what you know, Amira can bring. So yeah, we're really excited to have the two of them together in a Riot Cabaret ring. It's going to be electric.
Indeed. This I'm very, very, very excited for. Holly Jolly Rumble.
So
That's what I'm here for.
In Spotify studios, we've got a big screen up in front of us, and we're seeing the graphics come up as like, there's something so absurd about seeing all the little antlers and party hats on a 42-inch screen.
I'll bring it back one more time just for your pleasure.
that was my bad. It wasn't originally just a very, very, like, you know, sensible graphic, and I was like, these little fellas need little hats. Little
it's
things
all
on them.
good.
Yeah, that's good. So the Holly Jolly Rumble, traditionally, the winner will receive a Christmas wish.
Traditionally, we've done one. We've done one before.
As is tradition in the Holly Jolly Rumble.
It's now tradition now. You've done it once before, doing it again, it's now tradition.
It's now a holiday tradition that we do a Rumble and someone wins a Christmas wish. That is all the information that we currently have. Is there any? We give some juice.
Come on.
I don't know what juice there would be to give.
I could give
Go on, a ministry exclusive.
one of the competitors.
Yeah, go on, why not?
So Classy Karen will be appearing
Nice.
in the Holly Jolly Rumble.
I love the new gimmick. Yeah, like it's very like inventive. And the last Rumble you guys had was one of my favorite moments in wrestling ever. So I can't wait.
Oh, which one was that?
The 2000s Rumble.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Which particular moment?
You know what? The Shaun of the Dead moment with the zombies, and of course Bob the Builder. How could that not be a great moment?
Builder, yeah.
No, we had Britney versus Christina.
Well.
That was so
Well,
2000s. It was
Right, yeah, we bloody hell. That was quite a big rumble, wasn't it? The standard's been set pretty high.
Yeah,
Look.
if only there was a lot of cultural touch points that Christmas has provided us with over the years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
How will Classy Karen class it up for the festive rumble? Stay tuned.
Just got to keep the hat.
I'm just
The
gonna
hat
put
has
this
got
out
to
there.
stay.
I'm just putting this out there that you guys mentioned at WrestleMania where you were. There was a conversation of Baron Corbin being the best wrestler of all time or of our time. He's recently free. Is there a chance he may be at the Holly Jolly?
Well, I believe he's probably under a 90-day no compete
Today,
clause. So legally,
It wasn't for that.
unfortunately, we can't Holly Jolly Corbin up.
Yeah,
that would've
unless he
been
wants to
something.
come out in a reindeer mask so no one knows it's him.
But you know, I mean, I've met Baron Corbin. Very, very nice man. I did a YouTube video with him about the WWE games years and years and years ago, and he is a very, very lovely man. So you never know. Baron Corbin might be
All I
on.
will say is you never know who's going to turn up at Riot Cabaret. We said it before. We will say it again. But it's not going to be Baron Corbin.
Don't get
90-day no compete, guys.
Right. Okay. And now, obviously, the newly crowned champion, and as you guys mentioned, Subculture in a match that I am so excited to see. Here we go.
Ooh. It looks the business, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It
it's
going to
does.
be good.
I am so excited. It's unreal.
So I mean, we've waxed lyrical about Thunder Rosa, but I mean, really, in terms of what she has already done for Riot Cabaret since she has come into the fold and has been our champion, has been unbelievable. I mean, she was doing a signing the other week in Phoenix, Arizona, and she had the belt with her, and there was just like this little girl in Thunder Rosa face paint who came to her signing, and she was holding our title for her picture, and it was just like we didn't even particularly think of that. We were like, obviously, of course, it'll be cool if Thunder's the champion, but we didn't think of that kind of aspect of it, of like that's going to be one of the coolest moments of that little girl's life. And Thunder's doing this thing where she put up this video on her stories where she's teaching her like how to hold the belt and like all the different ways you can do it, like old school style or over the shoulder, around the waist. So Thunder as the champ so far has been just we're really, really pleased with how it's gone. I think it's provided us a lot of great moments already. That could all come screeching to a halt at the Jingle Bell Brawl, because I think Dani Luna she's being talked about right now as one of the best wrestlers, female or otherwise, in the world, and she's undefeated in Riot Cabaret in 2024. So there's pretty much no one more dangerous that Thunder Rosa could have for her first and possibly last defense.
I mean, Dani Luna, I think, other than getting sprayed in the eyes and rolled up by Cassius, hasn't lost a match. She won the main event at Friends Stand United.
She did.
I think she's, you know, in pretty much any time you see Dani Luna, like it's domination time.
Yeah, and with
I know it's
Subculture
not
as
going
well.
to be popular with the Riot fans, but we are we are big Subculture fans and huge Dani Luna fans. So that is
so
great
were we
news.
until
Wasn't
a
it?
few months ago. Yeah.
wasn't it right that got us a split?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Danny and Nina.
Oh, was it a dueling chance? Was it?
Yeah. It's one of those
I went home.
I have a feeling it's going to be again with Thunder and Daddy. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're. I mean, Sean's. I don't want to speak out of turn here because Sean's a close personal, or has been a close personal friend of Mark's who they work together. But we've had a lot of love for Subculture and that whole team over the years. And since Mark's been the champion, I can't necessarily say that I feel the same way. I'll probably best leave it there.
What
I
a
mean,
prick.
we saw what happened in the build up to it. Yeah.
Mm.
If I was shoved to the ground that way, James, I'd probably feel the same way. But
Yeah, what is he on? What is he playing at there?
You can tell how far my wrestling training went by the way I took that bump, can't you?
Wow, it's absolutely great. No, guys, again, and it wasn't through design. Riot Cabaret, as we said, we've been to many shows, and I'm going to promote Ignite once again, even though it's a Riot stage right now. I've been to Progress shows, I've been to Rev shows, been to Purpose shows. Riot Cabaret is the only show I have not. Oh, Hustle, of course. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was a hustle show. Yeah.
Hustle, of
Yeah.
course.
Well done.
But yeah,
well done.
have not the one show that I have not missed a single one this year is Riot Cabaret. And
We love that.
Thank you, man.
It was absolutely nuts, and I am so grateful that we got the last set of tickets out there. So just want to put the plug out there because I know it's just standing only at this point. What would you guys like to do to close it?
As in to close the show? Or to close the interview?
No, this interview.
I was like, well.
The stage is yours. Anyone who would like the last minute tickets, anyone who's never been to Riot, just right now for a wrestling fan or a casual, because that's what Riot's about, who's never seen Riot Cabaret, the stage is yours, gents.
I think December is a magical month where all kinds of things can happen, particularly Christmas, particularly the festive period. There's just a certain something extra in the air, isn't there? It's like a bank holiday weekend writ large. So I think if you're going to if you've never been to a wrestling show before, if you've never been to a Riot show before, if you're going to come to one, the Christmas one is your perfect way in. I think Russell T Davis says a great thing about Doctor Who Christmas specials where they need to be accessible for people to come in, but they also need to be even more nuts than usual because people are usually quite tired and quite drunk. Let's be honest, it's been a very, very long year. A Riot Cabaret Christmas show is no different. So if you want to be guaranteed of a very, very nice festive time indeed, and to be able to bring your friends to a place where they are absolutely guaranteed to have a superb Christmas party with a little bit of a difference and see some amazing action, Riot Cabaret is the place.
Yeah, it's the one to go to. If you're a wrestling fan and you've got people who are kind of on the fringes of wrestling fandom, and you want to show them it's going to be a good night, a really good festive laugh, which is going to be full of complete chaos, then that Jingle Bell Brawl show is absolutely definitely going to be the one to go to. And it's the show in terms of the things that are happening that I'm most excited about, I think.
Big time. As you say, it's standing room only now. We've sold out of absolutely everything else. So we're down to a limited number of standing tickets left. And as Sean alluded to earlier, when the shows sell out a little bit earlier, it just gives us a little bit more creative freedom to maybe chuck a couple of extra little Christmas gifts the way of our audience. So,
and at the moment, it's looking like and this isn't like, promoter bullshit. It's probably going to sell out, this one. So if you do want to come, genuinely, get your tickets in early so you don't miss out. Because unlike when All Singing All Dancing sold out, we were like looking for any spare nook and cranny to put people, and
expanded capacity.
Yeah, we were trying to just pack people in. We're kind of operating at that pack people in capacity for this one. So when it sells out, there will genuinely be no room.
All Singing, All Dancing is the one time I thought I'm really annoying these guys, because it was to the Riot inbox and both your personal inboxes, like, guys, any seats, anything, I will take it. So yeah,
I'll tell you right now, it's easy way for this to sell out. If you're a wrestling fan, this is what I try to do. I try to bring someone that's never seen wrestling before. I mean, never even seen it on TV. Don't come to me and go, it's a theater show. Come watch a theater show. You can take part. And then during that show, I get them to make a chant, and I go, you chant something and the crowd's going to join in with you. They leave fans. And then they're bringing their friends along next show. And then with that, though, I can't get a seat anymore because they buy tickets early. But yeah,
we need to have the MOW section, don't we? Really. Thank you so much. And guys,
I was actually going to talk about that after we pressed end record.
But like, seriously, we can't thank you guys enough in terms of the energy and the vibes that you bring to every show, because I think like there on that stage on those tables, like it's a nice comfortable kind of setting, isn't it? People are like, yeah, I've got my seat, I've got my table, this is very nice, and there go the wrestlers, and like kind of like the feral fan